Welcome and thanks for joining us here today. We're excited to have you here to show you how Beam can simplify super payments for you this SG deadline. My name is Angela and I'm the Service Delivery Manager here at Beam. Also joining me today from the Beam team is Georgie, who will be taking us through a demo of how you pay super contributions using Beam within Payroller. If you have any questions during today's session, please pop them into the Q&A panel, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. We're also joined by Lewis and Kendra from the team, who are ready to answer any of your questions. We'll also try and fit in some live questions at the end of the session. Before we get started, there's always a disclaimer. I'd like to note that the content within this presentation is educational only and is general advice. As usual, you should always consider the relevant PDS when opting to acquire or hold a financial product. You can always get a copy of the PDS from Payroller themselves. So on to the exciting stuff. So who is Beam? Beam is a super tech company that provides super payment solutions for software like Payroller. We're all about providing a brilliant super payment experience that lightens your workload. We do this by automating the admin, real-time upfront data validation, providing security and payment protection, simplifying compliance with super payment tracking, and we offer multiple payment methods to suit you as the end user. Through its integration with Payroller, Beam offers a fast and streamlined way for you to pay your employees super. In contrast to other clearinghouses, Beam allows you to manage your super within your payroll. So there's no more data exports, no more logging into portals or manual calculations. All of the information you need is here in the one place using Beam. Beam also offers upfront data validation, which means you're able to correct any errors before you submit your batch, instead of waiting for it to be returned later, which saves you time and rework. It's also easy to get started with Beam because Beam is included as part of your Payroller subscription and you've already registered. You're ready to start using Beam as of now. There's nothing else that you need to do. So now let's have a look at the exciting piece in action. I will hand over to Georgie to run us through a demonstration of how to make a contribution using Beam.
Thanks, Ange. Okay, I'll just share my screen. Okay. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We want to show you how to process a super batch using Beam in Payroller. So just to recap, Beam is an automated messaging, processing, and payment solution, allowing you to process super right here from within Payroller. Essentially, Beam means that there is no need to leave Payroller. All management of data can be done right here inside Payroller, removing the delays and the back and forth that is often required when processing super using other clearinghouses or managing the downloading and uploading of SAF files. So Beam provides us with complete transparency of the batch and the payment processes and provides us with a really simple and streamlined process, ensuring we can manage super easily and get it paid on time. So most of us on the call today, as Ange said, will be registered with Beam already, which means we're all set to begin processing a super batch. If we do need to check our settings with Beam, we need to go to the settings section within our account. So if I click on my business name in the top left-hand corner and I select settings, I then select superannuation. And you can see here in my account that I am already connected to Beam. But if I do want to edit the details, I can click on these three dots, select Edit Details in Beam, and that will take me to the 4 registration pages with Beam. The first is the business details, then our bank account and refund bank account details, and selecting the payment method. Then it is the default fund, and then the T's and C's. So we're now ready to pay super. I've run a number of pay runs in this demo account, as you can see here on this page. What I need to do now is select superannuation. When we are registered with Beam, this page will look a bit like this. We'll automatically see the super, which is being calculated in pay runs, but which is yet to be processed and paid by these amounts here under the Ready to Submit tab. We can edit the super paid period here by selecting on this drop-down. And if we've already paid the super up to a certain date, we can ignore them here by selecting that date or by ignoring the batch itself. We can check off on the details of the batch by clicking on View More. We can remove an employee. We can edit the details of an employee by clicking on that pencil icon. On each batch, we can indicate whether we'd like to pay by direct debit or BPay by clicking on this pencil icon here in the batch and selecting the payment method. When creating a batch, Beam performs a validation of the data. So it's time to create a batch now because we're happy to go ahead. So once we click Pay, Beam will perform a validation of the data to ensure the batch can be submitted and that there is no missing information that will prevent our batch from being submitted. And Beam will highlight any warnings and errors. So if I click on Pay to proceed with the batch, you can see that I have an error and some warnings here. Errors are things like missing member numbers, invalid dates of birth, incorrect or missing USIs. A USI is a unique superannuation identifier, which each super fund has. So this is what an error looks like. In this case, this error is an invalid date of birth. And we won't be able to proceed unless the error is fixed. So we'll go ahead and do that now. If I click on the edit, the pencil icon again, go across to tax for the date of birth, amend the date of birth, hit save, and close that out. So now that we've fixed the error and we proceed to process the batch, we'll now be just left with some warnings. And warnings might be missing phone numbers or the gender hasn't been entered, for example. So we can show those warnings by clicking here. Warnings will not stop us from proceeding with the batch, so we can simply come back to them at a later time. As you can see, Beam's upfront validation process is its secret weapon. It's going to save us a lot of time by preventing any issues with batch submissions down the track. Instead of managing any data issues after we've downloaded a SAF file and uploaded it into an external clearinghouse, and then having to come back into payroll to update those details and run the SAF file again, Beam performs a validation of the data right here inside Payroller, allowing us to manage these as we go. So I'll proceed with this batch by clicking Proceed. And in this test account, we have BPay set up. So the batch has been submitted, and now all we need to do is grab the payment reference number, which is this reference number here, and pop that into our internet banking. First, what I'll do is I'll just close that box and click on Already Submitted. So if we're paying via BPay, we should make the payment using the biller code and reference number on the same day as we process the batch. So in this submitted section, we can check out the employees being paid and also the progress of the batch. Once you have submitted the batch, the status will indicate awaiting payment. To grab the payment reference number, Payroller have provided this copy function, so you can copy both the biller code and the reference number and easily paste it over into your internet banking. There are a couple of important things to note. The reference number changes each time we run a batch. If you're paying by direct debit, the process of payment will happen for us automatically. So we submit the batch and the rest is done for us. Once payments have been received by the nominated fund, the status will change to Sent to Fund. If an employee is no longer with a super fund and you have already sent the payment, you will receive a Sent to Fund with refund status, which will show up here. A payment by direct debit will be cancelled if there are insufficient funds in your bank account and the status of the batch will change to cancelled. If you're paying by BPay and you see a cancellation, this will either be because payment wasn't received or it was received after the due date. So that's how to pay super using Beam in Payroller. A few things to make note of. Beam will pay the super to where it needs to go, whether that be to an APRA regulated fund or to a self-managed super fund. Beam helps streamline yet another requirement in fulfilling our payroll duties, removing the burden of managing external files and data across multiple systems. It's a new process, but once we've run one batch, we'll be up and running and we won't look back. Payroller has built Beam into their solution for your convenience. So it's easy to register and it's easy to manage your super obligations in one place. Use Beam so you can spend time on other things. And as we say at Beam, lighten your workload and brighten your day with Beam. Thank you very much. And I'll hand back to Ange now. Thanks, Ange.
Thanks, Georgie. Excellent presentation. Sometimes with tech, as we can imagine, things don't go according to plan, but that was very seamless. So thank you. So we do have a few pre-submitted questions, which we would like to cover off. And just a reminder, if you haven't already posted a question and you do have a question, please use the Q&A section down the bottom of your screen. But we have three pre-submitted questions. The first one being, if I want to pay by BPay, when should I make the payment using the reference details provided by Beam? So just reiterating what Georgie was saying before, you must send the payment the same day as submitting the contribution. Failing to send the payment the same day may prevent the money from hitting the super funds within the required timeframe. So the second question that we have is, how long does it take for Beam to process the contribution or contributions, if you're submitting multiple, before sending to the nominated super funds? So for Payroller users, we do have two payment options, one being BPay and the other being direct debit. So for BPay users, these payments will be sent to the nominated superannuation funds within 3 business days of us receiving both the contribution details and the correct payment. For direct debit users, funds will be debited from your nominated account and they will be sent to the nominated superannuation funds within 5 business days. This allows for the 3-day clearance period that is associated with direct debit. And lastly, I have some employees that have their own self-managed super fund. Can I use Beam to process superannuation contributions to this self-managed super fund? Yes, absolutely. Using Beam, you can contribute to an SMSF or a self-managed super fund. You will just need to make sure that the correct self-managed super fund details, including the ABN, the electronic service address, or commonly known as ESA, and the bank account details are provided by the employee or employees. So we're just going to see if there's any other questions that we're able to assist with. Think you might just give you a minute or so. If you do have any other questions, we can answer them live. Or as you can see, we do have Lewis and Kendra from the Beam team that are answering those questions as they come through.
I think there's also a question, Ange, about pricing. I believe in the standard and enterprise pricing tiers for Payroller, superannuation is included. But you may have to just check that with Payroller themselves, as we don't dictate pricing. That does come from Payroller. But from what I can see, it looks like it's in the standard plan and the enterprise plan.
Great, thanks, Georgie. Sorry, we're just capturing the last of the questions. We'll just give you another couple of seconds.
And can you see the questions that Narelle has posted to us?
Yes, just give me 1 minute. So there has been a question popped into the Q&A. Does Beam put it into an account, then pay employees, or does it go to the employees straight from my bank account? I have registered with Beam. So what we might actually do, without knowing the specifics of your use case, we might take that one offline and we'll reply to you directly if that's okay. We might just leave it another minute. If you're anything like me, I'm an extremely slow typer, so we do still have plenty of time. So please feel free, if you've got any questions at all, pop them into the chat. The team will be able to answer that. If there's anything that does come through slightly later, again, we've got your contact details. We will reach out to you, post this webinar and answer anything specific to your question. Great. Okay, I think we might just have one more that's come in. Let me just, I know Kendra's responding. Well, look, in that case, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been our privilege to take you through this. You will receive an email from us to complete a short survey on how well we have done. We really would appreciate your feedback. So if you can take a couple of minutes to complete this survey, that would be greatly appreciated. On behalf of Beam, we hope you're looking forward to using Beam to process your super payments this SG. And if you need any support at all, please don't hesitate. Reach out to Payroller directly, or you can contact the team here at Beam, and we're more than happy to assist.